All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with Business Today. All right, so remember we were having a conversation on the state of tourism in Kenya, and with me is Charles Gaku, who is the Managing Director, Air Travel and Related Studies Center. Thank you so much for sticking with us.
Welcome, Kevin.
All right, and we were speaking about the state of tourism.
Yes.
And we are now looking at, you had spoken about of course, getting the numbers of tourists.
Yes.
And we need to get now quality.
Quality of them.
The quality of them.
Paying the top dollar.
All right. And now, so in line with this, how do we boost revenue? How do we boost revenue and make sure that we get these numbers with quality in this particular sector?
My opinion is that we've concentrated on the beach and wildlife for a very long time. Mm-hmm. We need to think about the off the beaten track again, once more. It has always been the pipeline, but Kenya should now be known, not just as a tourism, or wildlife and beach destination, but a conference destination as well. I'm very happy with the Marriott. They have blown up the whole scene as far as conference is concerned. I think, they opened up 1 month ago. Mm-hmm. They're doing a good job. They even went ahead and opened up a new camp in the Mara, of course, upmarket. Mm-hmm. Talk about upwards of $2,000 per person sharing per night, or maybe $1,500 per person sharing per night. That's a good indication of where we are supposed to be headed. I've been in the business for 31 years, Kelvin, mm-hmm. and I've sto countries overtake us. I am not very sure that we are performing better than Tanzania as mm-hmm. I talk to you now. Mm-hmm. My first trip to Tanzania was 1995, and there was really nothing there. I have seen South Africa get out of apartheid, get independence, and go as high as 5.2 million tourists in a year. Mm-hmm. What is the magic about it is to diversify, not just beach travel tourism, and also we concentrate our tourism in our traditional areas, Masai Mara, Amboseli, Savo, Samburu, the coast and so on. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with opening up the Western Circuit? It has quite a lot to offer. The tea plantations, Mount Elgon itself, the Lake Victoria, Kisii itself, the soapstones of tobacco, I think you know them, and much more. There's nothing wrong. And you boost quality, you boost revenue that are going to give you the numbers that it is that you want.
All right, and let me just hold you right there before we continue.
Yes.
We've spoken about that Tanzania and South Africa.
Yes.
And at one point, Tanzania was not where it is right now.
Not in the map.
Yes, and South Africa also.
Not even independent.
All right, and so what is it that they're doing that they've surpassed us, because we started earlier than especially Tanzania? What is it that they're doing in order for them to move that forward?
I think there's much more seriousness in investing in the product. Mm-hmm. They've identified that mass market does not take us very far. They also have a lot of support from government in terms of the budget allocation that they get every other budget year. I am also aware that in Tanzania, for example, a whole head of state, Her Excellency Suluhu Hassan, mm-hmm. goes on roadshows in the US to market tourism. When two operators are doing the roadshows in Chicago, Miami, and she accompanies them. It's a genuine interest and a passion to develop tourism. I could go on and on. South Africa, for example, of course, was a discovery. It just come from apartheid, wanted to go there. Mm-hmm. But they maintain, they got to know the psychology, what clients are really looking for, they get to diversify. They took opinions of visitors seriously and worked on it. Mm-hmm. Don't forget that South Africa was a very strong middle income bracket. So 50% of those who travel around the parks and national reserves are actually almost South Africans. But you cannot say the same of Tanzania. So we might want to say that a strong economy also brings in many more tourists, including local ones. But there's something wrong with our product. Mm-hmm. It is tired. We need renovations. We need to think out of the box. Who is doing trekking safaris in this country? Kilimanjaro is doing 60,000 tourists a year. It's in Tanzania. Mount Kenya is second highest in Africa. We barely are doing 15,000. Mm-hmm. So who is doing mountaineering safari? Who's doing the desert safaris? When I was in Utalii College in the 80s and 90s, Lake Turkana was a very, very, very serious destination on the Turkana buses. Now abandoned. We don't hear of anybody goes to Turkana for desert tourism. So we need to diversify, take our products seriously, and only target those that can be able to pay that top dollar. A good example, Rwanda. 6 hours to see gorillas, 1,500. just for 6 hours. Our park fees are barely $80 to $90. So that means one client going to Rwanda, we require 18 of them to make the same amount of money that we could make. So for me, tourism at its high peak, tourism at its highest quality is the way to go, not the numbers.
All right. And now, let's also look at another perspective.
Okay.
The marketing strategies that we have. Are they working for us?
I see lots of them directed towards the international markets, and of course a bit more directed to the local market. But I must say that even that marketing strategy itself needs to be diversified. We need to get into the big leagues. If you look at the English Premier League, for example, you see Visit Rwanda. I don't see Visit Kenya. I know it's a huge money that we have to commit in.
Yes.
But look at what they are reaping. They're reaping serious benefits. I don't know whether you know that there's a serious partnership between Air Rwanda and Qatar Airways. They are building for them a serious airport in Kigali. What does that portend for Kenya Airways? What does that portend when you see even Air Tanzania and Uganda Airlines also coming up with their own aircraft, with their own flights, with their own airline companies? We are not at a good place in our country. We are market leaders still, but for how long? I have my doubts. I have my doubts.
All right. And also, as we were looking at this year, speaking about the employment opportunities for the young people, and also including the counties to contribute into tourism. I mean, all the counties that we have, there's something peculiar about each county.
That's true.
So in creating employment and also merging it together with marketing the counties for us at least to improve this, how is it going to work?
A great thing. But even before you talk about identifying attractions in each and every county, we have, like where I am at Air Travel and Related Study Center, out of every 500 students that graduate every year, 300 don't work in the country. They're in Qatar, they're in Etihad, they're in Dubai, and all these other countries and states. You have seen that we have major cruise liners coming through government channels to actually pick staff to go and work in the cruise lines for housekeeping, for front office, for food and beverage service and sales, for being chefs and so on, and even hotel managers or even cruise managers. These are ready markets. The pandemic did not only hit Kenya, it hit the whole world. The scenario of a half of staff members that never went back to the jobs, that applies to the whole world. We have a golden opportunity to take our youth out of the country where they will work to international standards and get jobs and drive back the foreign exchange into our country. Don't forget that for us to be able to do that, we must have proper institutions, proper colleges that also offer international qualifications. For example, at Air Travel and Related Study Center where I work, our examiners are International Air Transport Association based in Montreal in Canada, the World Association of all the airlines of the world. That means that wherever my students or any other Kenyan for that matter flashes that qualification from IATA, it is recognized worldwide. So even before we think about identifying whatever attractions are there in our respective counties, it's also very important to tap into this ready market. Australia is crying for foreign people to go and work in the industry. The same for Poland, the same for Australia, the same for Canada, I think you know, and of course the traditional Middle Eastern countries. Airlines are expanding, so are hotels, so are the cruise liners and so on. Let our youth agree that the CBC system, where we are training skilled people to guide tourists, to prepare the food, to serve that food, to prepare the rooms, is the way to go. Once they get into a tertiary college like ours and train in those areas, I am assuring you 98%, Kelvin, that employment, not just in Kenya, but outside the country, is guaranteed in those areas.
All right, very well said. Let's look at technology. Of course, we are in the technology world. Everything these days is digital. Everyone is moving to the tech side of doing business. All right, how has it affected the tourism sector? You've been in this sector for 30 years plus. 31 years.
That's correct, 31 years, yes.
So, since when you started up to now, how has technology come? Has it really impacted it to the positive side or to the negative side?
It's a great question. I must thank you for that one, Kelvin. During our times, to train to be a hotel manager at Kenya Utalii College was for 4 years. and what you'd get is a diploma. That means that everything was so manual. And the housekeeping, the restaurant, the service, and so on, the kitchen was so manual. Today, they're offering it for less. As a matter of fact, for us, we offer hotel management course for only 2 years because we believe that with the aid of technology, you don't need to stay in a college for that long. So in that regard then, the youth should take advantage of not being in a school for 2 or for whole 4 years, because it is possible to train some theoretically and some online, presence, and also the other part of the course online. It has become less and less tedious to work in the industry. On the ticketing part, for us to be able to issue air tickets, we used to calculate how much a ticket will cost from Nairobi to London to New York manually. Today, you just have your laptop, you have what is called a GDS, you just feed in your itinerary and the class of service, and you get your fare. In a split of a second, you can quote that fare to a client. So it has impacted very positively. Unfortunately, Kevin, the industry remains very much misunderstood. I do get people coming to make an inquiry from me, and they say, my daughter or son could not fit in a certain profession, so I brought them here because I hear these courses also are good. So for many of Kenyans, this is an alternative.
Oh, it's a plan B.
It's a plan B. It's not that plan B. Remember, for a long time, Kevin, you were the 3rd highest foreign exchange earner for our country.
Yes.
Today, we are 3rd. Talk about diaspora, then agriculture, and then, of course, ourselves.
Tourism.
It is possible that with concerted efforts from the youth, we can get back to those levels where we are the highest foreign exchange earner. And you will find the dollar and the pound and the euro going down as a result. The potential is immense. If a half of what I train can get out of the country and get international good jobs, structured professional jobs, that tells you the world is wanting, but they're not providing to the world enough to have our youth out of this country and bring in as much foreign exchange as they can.
All right.
Yes.
Let's look at our local tourism. Kenyans touring within the country.
Can I tell you that the lifeline of
Yes.
the COVID, during the COVID era, to Mombasa, whether it is the south coast, the north, or to Atamu,
Yes.
and in fact to our national parks and national reserves, it was the Kenyan, the local market, the so-called domestic market. We are lucky that despite all that, we have a vibrant middle class who are able to set aside some disposable income, despite the odds, and visit our national parks and national reserves. And I must thank our high schools and even primary school for the education that they've given towards tourism.
Yes.
Even if tourism in many areas in our high schools is actually a chapter in a subject called geography, which is not even compulsory.
Yes.
But can you see that despite all that, with now the awareness, the media, and so on, you're getting that kind of a huge chunk of people traveling. During the COVID era, 50% of what we got were locals. And they held on to the industry into some levels that we never thought possible. So we should never forget the local market. It is a market that is growing, it should be tapped, and it has been said that if you actually did calculations, the domestic market pays more to the hotels than the international tourists. Because for you to send money to an agent, for an agent to send you money to run your businesses here abroad, they must have gotten their commission. So what reaches a hotel or a tour operator down here is quite little compared to what a Kenyan would pay straight on to an operator or to a hotel along the coast and elsewhere.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Now, even as we come to a conclusion, and to conclude this conversation, what are we looking at in terms of growth in this particular industry with the concerted efforts from, as we've seen, the government and also the counties coming in and saying, all right, we want to sell whatever we have within the county to the rest of the world?
Our targets should be based on not the numbers, but what are they leaving behind? What exchange are we getting? Diversify our conference tourism. We are lucky we have KICC, but I think also you have seen the emergence of hotels in our region. Take an example of Westlands, Movenpick, name it. I can go on and on. It is an area that they're targeting, the conference tourism. It's an area that you need to explore. Let's train our youngsters as early as possible to embrace tourism. And of course, I can never overlook the fact of peace. Unless you have peace, until you have peace, you will not get them coming. For example, don't forget that they take holidays to visit our country. In the event that our country looks insecure, they will not cancel their leaves. They'll go to other destinations. It's the same elephant in Tanzania or Zambia or Zimbabwe, on the same line. So they will utilize that timing that they have for leave to go elsewhere. Again, we need to, of course, refurbish most of our infrastructure. It's not very good. Tired, over time, and so on, and it is mass market targeted. If you can get rid of that systematically to come up with quality tourists, we are able to do that. And finally, we must allow airlines to operate into our country. The Open Skies Agreement that was done in Yamoussoukro in the Côte d'Ivoire, that must take precedence. Just because you're weak and you cannot reach that other country because you don't have the infrastructure, does not mean that they should not come into a country.
Yes.
How will you realize 5 million tourists into a country if we are still putting a halt to the Open Skies Agreement? It is a thing that we must think. Finally, we must have our youth trained in travel and tourism and hospitality. It's the next new frontier, and we must sensitize them on the importance of this particular industry because it pays. It pays much more. You train for a shorter course, you get a skill that is very, very much sought after anywhere in the world. If you've taken airlines like Qatar or even Emirates, you have seen that among the cabin crew, you won't miss 5 Kenyans. Something for us in this industry, in tourism.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. That is Charles Gaku speaking very passionately about the tourism industry. We've come to the end of business today. My name is Kelvin Yakundi. Stick around. Mbiu ya KTN is coming up next.